بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب زدني علما.
A quick introduction about myself. I'm Sikandar Shaik. I'm a certified in CCIE. Basically, I hold three CCI certifications: certified in CCIE Enterprise, Service Border, and Security. So I'm expertised in offering different types of trainings, mainly on the Cisco technologies. Apart from that, you'll also find some other trainings on different products, mostly relevant to the network security, service for a data center, those kind of relevant things. Okay. You will find the basically we'll be doing some online trainings which will be doing generally be done on the weekends. Apart from that, we also record the sessions. You'll also find some training videos, workbooks, and the lab guides you'll find on the website. Apart from that, also do some kind of IT solutions like consulting and other things. Okay. So specific URLs where you can connect with me. Now, quickly, let's jump into the course here, where we already know about the Cisco because you're into CCNP. So basically, I expect you to already have some idea about the Cisco technologies. So Cisco is the leading manufacturer of the networking devices, whether it is routers, switches, firewalls, data center devices, wireless devices. There are plenty of devices what Cisco is one of the major or the main vendor or the manufacturer of the devices. You'll find different vendors, of course, plenty of other vendors as well, apart from Cisco. Whereas Cisco mainly deals with routers and switches. Cisco is a leader in the market, routers and switches, especially the routing and switching market, but you'll also find other vendors. But at the end, when you're learning, we generally learn Cisco technologies, even though in the production network, you might be finding other devices like Juniper or even Huawei or different vendors, dealing. There is a big list of vendors, but at the end, once you learn any one vendor, whether it's a router or switch, it becomes easy automatically to manage other devices. Like Cisco also into firewalls. So if you learn the Cisco ASA or FTD firewalls, it means like automatically you will be in a position to also quickly learn the FortiGate or checkpoint or any other firewalls or Palo Alto firewalls. Cisco have a detailed course design. That is one of the main reasons why we generally prefer to learn Cisco. But at the end, you will be also find different vendors. So in terms of courses, in terms of modules, in terms of learning process, we always go with the Cisco. That's going to be the first step, and most of the companies prefer the certified candidates, especially specialized in Cisco technologies. And Cisco offers different tracks like CCNA associate level, which is Cisco Certified Network Associate, and then we have is professional level and the expert level certifications. Now, specialist level is basically if you get certified in any one module from the CCNP, you will get the specialist level certification. So generally, you have the associate level is more like your CCNA. If you already know about the CCNA course, Cisco Certified Network Associate, then you can advance yourself to CCNP professional level, where again you can do it CCNP and you can also expertise into CCI as well. So CCNA is going to be the first course, and again, in terms if you are doing CCNP or any other courses, the prerequisite is you need to have the foundational level knowledge on the CCNA concept. That's the first thing, and from here you can advance yourself to any of the specializations. You can just advance to any of the specializations. Basically, here our focus will be more on enterprise, where we'll be specializing to the enterprise technologies. Now, the enterprise technologies mainly deals with routing and switching. So more about the LAN and the WAN, which is going to be the main thing in any network. Any network you talk about, there is always a LAN and WAN. So on the top of it, you will apply security. On the top of it, you'll manage the data center. On the top of it, you will implement the wireless, plenty of other things. So generally, what I feel is what I have seen is the enterprise track is the core of the network. Basically, even though you are expertised in any other technologies, you may be in the future, you might be advancing yourself to data center or to some security or any other modules, but the NP is going to be the core skill set, which is always required, and it becomes almost like a mandatory skill set to add uh, to move further, basically. So, okay. Later on, you can just focus on more advanced other technologies, later on the CCIE, where you will learn more in depth. But that's going to be the roadmap here. Okay, so in terms of certifications, you don't need to really do the exam. Now you can directly write any CCNP exams directly without any CCNA exams. So there's no more prerequisite nowadays. We'll talk about certifications a little bit later. So the prerequisite skills at this point of time, I expect for CCNP Enterprise, uh, I expect you to already have the CCNA level knowledge skill set, and of course, not expert level, because again, at least have a foundational level knowledge. Means at least I expect you to know what is the IP address and the submitting concepts, which you generally cover in the CCNA. And I expect you to already know what is routing, static routing, dynamic routing, and the default routing introductions. We'll be deep diving in here, of course, in the CCNP. And I'll expect you to know the basic switching concepts, like what is switch, what is switching, how the switches learns the MAC address, and then some VLANs, trunking, those kind of concepts. Of course, we'll be starting with the VLANs here, and we'll try to deep dive into the switching concepts. Additionally, other things like the basic security stuff like ACL NAT configurations, some services overview, and also expect you to have some other knowledge like understanding some services, like understanding some logging or some NTP services. Of course, there are many other services we'll also cover up here. So CCNP is more kind of a little bit on revision of the CCNA, not everything, because whatever the topics we are going to cover more in advanced, more in detailed, and more kind of like we can say in the CCNP, we will be deep diving into these technologies. So at the CCNA level, you know what is routing, how we configure the routing, and the configuration, verifications, basic troubleshooting. But mostly at the CCNP level, you will be doing mostly on the level 2 job. Like the CCNA is more on the level 1, where you might be doing the basic things. But at the CCNP level, you will be in a position to do some advanced configurations and some troubleshooting as well. And of course, once you have some good exposure or experience, you can also be, you can also, it will help you to move to the advanced level like L3, where you will be responsible for designing the networks as well. Now, quickly, what we will do is the next thing. Now, before we move on with any of the courses, the first thing we need to understand, the mindset. Basically, you need to understand the categories. So, considering the audience, the students who are generally joining, I categorize them into 3 different categories. So, we'll talk about the categories and the requirements, and accordingly, you can plan your career, because that's really important for you to understand. Because when you are enrolling for the course or joining for the course, there will be some kind of expectations, and accordingly, at the same time, you have to also prepare well based on that expectation. So at the same time, you have to work hard. At the same time, as a trainer, it's my job is to ensure that I will guide you on the same. So most of the learning part will be the common for all, but there will be slight variations. Like let's try to understand the categories first. The first category will be like mostly the freshers, like you might be just graduated or you don't have enough experience and you want to get into the network engineer role or network security engineer role, these kind of roles. So the prerequisite you did the CCNA and you want to add some additional skill set to make your profile much stronger with more add-on skill set. So basically, you can go for L1, L2 program where you will be adding some more in-depth concepts on the routing switching, mainly the troubleshooting. That's what you will be focusing. So now, previously it was like routing, switching, T-shoot, three modules. Now we have something like Enterprise, ENCOR, NRC. We'll talk about that certification separately. Okay. So most of the time, now the main job is you want to get into either on the network L1 support level or the basic network engineer or network safety kind of roles. And of course, additionally, you will be also doing the labs. Most of the labs, we'll talk about the lab simulations, how to do on a separate session. But basically, you will be practicing the labs and simulating the labs and those things. And other things like certification and other things you will also be working on. So job preparation, interview questions. Anyway, I'm going to share the interview questions or the mock labs, which is also part of the learning process. This is the first category. Okay. So for the first category, it's simple. Like you just need to add the additional skill set and then just apply for the L1 job or as a fresher. And that's going to be the main focus. And the first 2 years, you will be more focusing on getting some experience and learning additional skill set as per the job roles. Now, the second category, we can say like, now the second category, most of the people fall into this category. Majority of the CCNP roles, where you already working a working professional, where you have 2 to 3 or 2 to 5 years of experience, or even more than that. It depends. And you're working either as a network engineer role as an L1 engineer, or you might be working in some other roles like maybe a system admin role or some other networking role, which is relevant to the same networking roles, but you want to advance yourself into the next level. Maybe if you're working for an L1 engineer, you might be looking out to reach out or apply for the level 2 engineer roles, or maybe you're working as a system admin and you want to move to the network admin or the network engineer kind of roles, or maybe you want to add additional skills. So it depends. Mostly relevant experience or similar kind of experience you have in the IT. So mainly applying for the level 2 roles, adding the experience or merging the experience based on networking. In that scenarios also, you need to advance your skills to CCNP, where you will be getting into more advanced configurations, troubleshooting, those kind of things. Additionally, you will be adding, these are the add-on skill set you need to add, like a little bit on monitoring tools and other things. So if you're already working, you might already have some idea about these kind of tools which are used in the production scenarios. And on top of it, you can also add some firewall or the VPN knowledge that is going to add some additional security skills to the existing profile. Or maybe you are advancing yourself to CCIE, because again, if you have some 5+ years of experience, normally the roadmap what we suggest or everyone prefer or is kind of a CCIE kind of role, where you add some automation skills, or maybe you're adding some firewall skills, VPN skills, which is something becomes mandatory when you are working for more than 5 years. Okay. Of course, if you're just working for 1 to 2 years, just the CCNP enterprise skill set will be good enough to move on initially. But as you move on, but if you're already working for more than 5 years, you need to make sure that you will be definitely expertising these skills, especially when you're moving to a different company or applying for a new job roles or applying for senior positions. They expect you to be more expert, and that is more kind of a common category you'll find. And the third category, which is also can be a possible thing, where you might be experienced but into a non-IT background, sorry, or moving from a different roles. Generally, we call it as a domain shift, where you're moving on from a different domain to mostly like a network security role, or network engineer role, or network security kind of roles. Now, when you're moving on this domain, again, that's where again the challenge comes, because you are completely moving from one domain to another domain. So again, here you need to have some good understanding on the CCNA, CCNP skills, which we'll be adding. And additionally, you'll be practicing more, because now the challenge for this category is as they are into non-networking background experience or any skill set relevant to that, that becomes a challenge to simulate the labs. Of course, you can just start learning and simulate the labs. And depending upon the amount of experience you already have or the amount of experience you want to add, the skill set also varies. But the same thing again, if you are adding some 2+ years of skill set or experience, relevant experience, if you are just adding up, then probably you need to have at least NP level skill set. And again, that's something what recommend. So most of this place, especially if you are from moving from another domain, then most likely you need to have some. You will be a little bit adding some experience like 2+ years. Then basically you need to be a CCNP level knowledge skill set. Okay. And adding some firewall, those additional skill set that also will be helpful. So these are the three different categories. Generally, I categorize the students normally who enroll for more majority of the courses. Either the freshers, they just they don't have much to do. Generally, they just need to keep learning and expertise and prepare for the interviews. But whereas if you're moving on a different category, like if you're already a working professional into IT, then your job role will be, means your requirement will be more in expertising the skill set, adding additional skill set to 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 make your profile more stronger. That's what, or maybe kind of a revision for majority of the people. They revise the course, and the third category will be this one. So you might be falling on any of these categories. There will be a common learning for all. Like at the end, the learning part remains the same, where you will be doing the training, either the live training or doing some videos or using both. And of course, you'll be doing a regular practice or practice the labs as per the given workbook. All the labs. Of course, we can simulate them, simulate the labs in your own device. We'll talk about that. And that's something you have to do in parallel. So in parallel, you have to make sure that you attend the sessions or listen to the lectures and then practice. This is the main first part you have to do. So this is mandatory. So this will only help you to understand the concepts, but at the same time, this will not help you to become an expert. So when you're applying for a job or when you're going for the real time or when you're moving on working in a working environment, so simply understanding the concepts are not going to help. Okay. So that is okay, if you're learning, when you're doing the graduations and those things, you just understand the concepts and you pass the exams. That's a different thing. But whereas here, you not just understanding the concepts, you need to be an expertized, whatever you learn. So which means you need to be very good in that, so that if you are facing any issue, you should be in a position to troubleshoot. You should be in a position to understand the real time scenarios and correlate these things with the live networks or correlate with what you learn and then apply the suitable things. And for that, you need to do additional things like, of course, you need to practice some additional mock labs, which I'll be sharing at the end of the course. And also, you need to make sure that you also prepare some specific interview-related questions, which I'll try to share mostly topic-wise, because normally I share at the end of the course, but that's going to be too much at the end of the course. So we'll share topic-wise. So these things you need to keep learning, because the mock labs are kind of a real scenario-based labs, which I'll be sharing at the end of the course normally, which is more kind of a real scenario-based labs where we try to integrate majority of the things in one single lab.
Okay. Sir, I have one question.
Yeah, yeah. Basically, there's a question like how we can stay active with the competition, or how we can make ourselves more valuable to the company or the organization. It totally depends on the learning. Okay, so see, when you're working for any company, the company will only you know look out how they can make you to work. Means normally most of the time when you're working, you might be shifting from one domain to another domain. That is again common. Of course, at the end you have to focus on the learning part. Let's take an example. You have started as a level one engineer, network engineer role, maybe as a fresher, maybe whatever the role. Because at the beginning when you're starting, you work for 2 to 3 years. Generally, most of the companies have a contract where you work for 2 years and they train you. Mostly they train you as per their projects and the requirements. This is very common because when you're working for a company, most of the job roles, what you do, the trainings, what you get, it's totally based on the projects. Of course, that is important for the company because at the end they are paying. But at the same time, we also need to make sure that whatever the learning part, it is also helping you to move on a specific domain. Like let's say you're working as a network engineer role and for the 2 years and you will be learning some routing skills. Of course, you did routing and switching skills and you're majorly working on any of this domain. And additionally, if you're adding some other skill set like firewalls or VPNs, that is going to add advantage at the end. You'll be having an advantage. So, and also during this process, you might be configuring a Cisco devices. For some clients, you might be having some Juniper devices, and for some, they will be using a FortiGate devices. So, the different vendors, you'll also keep learning different vendors as well while you are implementing the things. But the challenge, because these are all relevant linked, we can say linked technologies, which will always be make your profile much stronger as a network security engineer or network engineer, these kind of things. But the challenge comes when you are working, when you join as a network engineer or a routing switching engineer, but slowly you move on to some admin related roles, or maybe you move to some marketing roles, or sometimes you move to the different project management kind of roles, and that's where it becomes a challenge. Okay. So whatever the projects you work on, it has to be a little bit relevant. That's something you need to make sure, and that will automatically keep you learning. And even though if you don't now, sometimes you might not have enough projects, or maybe you're just doing the same repeated task every day. You just go to the office and you just sit in the office and you will be doing the same task. You have nothing to do. You just go to as a level one, level two engineer. You do some monitoring, you do some troubleshooting a little bit, maybe occasionally, and you have just one network setup, or maybe you have 2, 3 clients, and there's no much learning in this part because when you're working for an IT solution companies, let's say if you're working for any IT solutions, you have different clients, different projects where you keep learning. You need to keep learning, you know, as for the job role. That is kind of a demand. But let's say if you're working for one company, like I've seen there are few people work for a government-based organizations, and they have the complete one setup, and that will not change for many years, like maybe 10 plus to 20 years. And they might be working for more than 5 to 8 years, and suddenly they realize, after 5 to 8 years, there is no career movement. Like you're not getting much salary hikes, and also at the same time you're not even moving on a different senior positions. So suddenly you realize that you have to move on with another job. Now that's where the problem comes, because whatever the amount of time you have spent, if you're not learning, which means it's almost like a fresher. You have the experience, but you're not in a position to clear the interviews. So you have to motivate yourself to learn. Like normally, if you're working professional, I strongly suggest you dedicate 2 hours per day on the learning, 2 to 3 hours, like roughly 20 hours. It's per week. It's important that you focus on learning. Now you have to identify what skill set, a relevant skill set, which will make your profile stronger. So what learning? Of course, the skill set you have to add, which can make your profile much stronger. Like if you're working as a network engineer, again, you might be adding some firewall skills, VPN skills, or relevant skills, or SD-WAN skills, these kind of things. Now, how we can identify? Simple. Either you watch your seniors or the other team members, what they are doing. Obviously, they will be working on some multiple technologies. So you learn those things. and also based on the projects or based on the network setup, what you have and what you don't know. Like you have the network setup with FortiGate firewall, but you don't know the FortiGate firewall, so probably you'll be adding that skill set. You see there is a VPN setup, but you don't know how to configure the VPNs, you will be adding that. So whatever the skill set you relevant, which is something other senior teammates or other people are doing, you add the skill set that will make your profile much stronger. Okay. Now this is something mandatory, not just now, because if you want to grow, you have to learn. You have to keep learning. You have to make the habit of learning. Minimum 20 hours per week. That's something what I suggest. If you're doing some sessions, roughly you're spending almost 10, like 4 to 5 hours on learning classes and practice. Like it makes it easily 10 to 20 hours. Okay? So that's what I suggest to stay ahead with compared to others or to be in order to grow, because there is a lot of scope. Because if you keep on learning, I have seen many people who just started as like just a quick example, who just have the basic knowledge on the CCNA, working as a level one with 2 years of experience. Roughly, let's say they are making some XYZ amount. I'm not going to mention because it's will be different. Let's say in Indian rupees, let's say they are making 20K per day per month. That's something kind of thing. And they have been doing they added the skill set like CCNP and then maybe some firewalls, get some experience parallelly, keep on learning. So this whatever you're making now, maybe you have 2 years of experience, and if you're doing for the next 5 years, probably by the next 5 years it will be almost like into two or into three or easily. Okay. So every year you can have at least 30% of salary hikes, or increments or moving a different job, different roles. You can easily make a difference. So which means it's almost like double for next 3 4 years easily. That is only possible with learnings. Okay. So the more you learn, the more you add the skill set. Of course, it's very important to identify the skill set, what you need to add. It's not just you are learning, you're learning some kind of programming which is not relevant to your skill set or the job. That's not going to help you. Okay. So you have to add on skill set. Many people say, learn automation, learn this, learn cloud. There are many kind of learn cybersecurity. I generally get the people asking like, I want to do cybersecurity, but at the back end, when you ask them, okay, you want to, because they realize that, cybersecurity is in demand, and then there is a huge scope, huge jobs, and all these things. You will see the blogs and everything. But if that is not relevant to your experience, if that is not relevant to your core skill set, there's no point in learning that. You're working as a network engineer, and you don't have two things you need to two things will decide what you will learn. The first one is the background skill set. So I'm not saying network engineers can move to the cybersecurity. That is a different case. But there's a roadmap. You need to add the firewall skill set. You need to learn the VPNs. You need to have some additional programming skill set, and you need to have the project, maybe a project, or maybe your company is looking forward for you to support or train, or because if you're learning the skill set and if you're not working on it, then it's almost like no experience. Of course, it will be good to add in the resume. So these things you have to consider. At the same time, cloud is good. You need to understand, you need to have some idea about Azure cloud, because most of the devices we host on it. But at the same time, these are add-on skill set. This is not the core skill set. You don't need to learn DevOps and other things, which many people, ask me, these things. Automation, okay, it's good. You don't need to be an expert in automation. You need to know the basics of automation. That is good enough, because Cisco have its own automation solutions like SD-WAN, SDA, graphical interface. Every vendor have their own products. So this will vary. So it vary based on individuals, based on your background experience, based on what you, based on many things. What in which projects you're working, what kind of roles. So relevant skills you need to keep on adding. That is the most important thing. Add the relevant skill set. That will automatically make you to be a better compared to others, and always you will be in demand. Okay. Of course, you have to keep learning at least for 10 to 15 years. If you're starting your job as a network engineer today, then probably for the next 10 years, you need to keep learning. And then after 10 years, you can say, okay, I don't need to learn anything now. That's something you can stop after that. Even if you're keeping learning after that also, still you will grow. Because once you're at this position, either if you're sitting as a project manager or IT manager, you don't need to learn anything. But if you're into field, if you're working as a consultant, and if you are working or providing the solutions, you need to keep adding the new technologies, and you always need to do that. Okay. So once you learn for 8 to 10 years, you will be get used to it automatically. Okay. So this is something what I suggest for anyone who is working or not working. So you have to plan the things as per that. Okay, the question is like, do we need to learn only the Cisco technologies or relevant other vendors? Like the question is like, let's say you're doing some routing switching. You will be learning like in the CCNP Enterprise, you are learning the routing and switching, or if you're doing some Cisco firewalls, then you learn Cisco ASA FTD. So is it recommended to learn the other vendors as well? It totally depends on the requirement. Basically, when you go to the live networks, like because I also work as consultant, so we consult many organizations. So if you go with the different companies, you will find different companies will have different vendors. Like basically, we're into IT solutions as well. So when you're offering for different clients like ABC, someone says they will be using Cisco routers, switches. They are not really bothered about the costing, which is very high on the Cisco side, and firewalls as well. They generally go with the best Cisco. In the market, Cisco leads the market, not in the firewalls, but there are some organizations which will generally say, okay, we want some cost effective solution. They might go with a simple dealing, or sometimes, Huawei, other alternate cost effective Cisco copy product, we can say. So basically similar kind of product, because you'll see most of the CLI and everything's similar. So in terms of learning, so when you're working, you will be learning automatically the other vendors depending upon the project. Because personally, I don't, in terms of learning, Cisco has a good learning roadmap. Like if you want to become a network engineer with routing switching skills, then CCNP Enterprise is the track which you have to learn. And if you want to learn firewalls, then generally I say you need to, if you want to be a good foundations, we generally say Cisco ASA FTD firewalls, you can start learning. Now, other vendors you can only learn after once you complete or expert on this. Because parallelly learning is something not recommended, because parallel learning, at the end, the concepts remains the same. If you talk about the concepts remains the same. The routing concepts remains the same, like how the static routing works, how the OSPF works, how the routing protocol works, route filtering works. All the concepts remains the same. Whether if you take the same example with the switching, the same thing, the VLANs, trunking, inter-VLAN routing, spanning tree, these all concepts remains the same. Even the same thing with VPNs or any other technology. So in terms of technology, the concepts remains the same irrespective of the vendor. So which means when you're learning, you probably focus on any one vendor, whichever you require immediately. Like let's say you're learning the firewalls and your company have a FortiGate firewall. So you can immediately start learning the FortiGate firewall at the first, because you're learning at the same time you also have implementation experience that's going to add an advantage. But if you don't have any experience, generally Cisco is a better option if you are uh, if you're if you want to learn in the beginning. Okay, but once you learn and expertise one vendor, now the second vendor becomes automatically easy, because you don't need to learn again the new concepts. You don't need to learn what is routing, what is switching. You only need to learn how to configure, how the commands will be, how the graphical interface will change, and what will be the default behavior differences. Like there are behavioral differences will be there, like there are few features will be enabled on some vendor, might not be enabled on other vendors. So there will be some default behaviors, differences. Those things we need to understand. So once you understand that, you can do either through self-learning or through some courses. If you are good enough, then you can just refer some documentations and you can do that if you're very good. Or else you can just enroll for that particular course. Like you already did some routing switching, but unfortunately, you won't find much of those courses available on other vendors, especially in routing switching, because Cisco leads that. But when it comes to firewalls, you will find different vendors. Like that's how it's going to be. So at the end, you will be learning different vendors and adding that in the profiles. But that comes with the requirements. So whenever you have the requirement, you have the project, you have the clients, basically you will learn that, and that will also help you in the future as well. Okay, so basically the query here is like you have been working for more than 6 years into IT and working majorly on the wireless, setting up the hospital university based networks. Also, you have some firewalls into it, and you want to add some additional skill set like enterprise, the CCNP enterprise, and some other skill set and on. Okay. See, now the first thing what you have to analyze is, of course, the skill set you need to add as much as possible. As majorly you're working into the wireless. Wireless is something a kind of growing network as well as the mandatory skill set you need to have, especially working with any vendor. Like you might be managing any vendor wireless, whether you are managing the Aruba wireless or any other wireless, basically Cisco or any access points or the controllers. So it's going to be similar because most of the graphical interface goes on the same way. So there's something kind of a mandatory skill set which you already have an experience on it. So that's something you can add up. Now the next part is like currently you also plan to do some CC. You're also doing some CCNP enterprise. So CCNP enterprise is going to be like a core skill set for any domain. So any domain you're working for, whether you're working for on the security side or whether you're working on the wireless or any domain. So CCNP is going to be like the core skill set, which is something you need to have because at the end everything connects to the routers and the switches, and managing that routers and the switches is going to be important skill set. But you don't need to be an expert in that. It only depends. Once you move to the firewalls or once you move to security background, you don't need to again come back to the enterprise of this skill set. So at this point of time, the first thing what I recommend you to do is you need to identify, because now you will be moving on. So wireless is something you can add in depth as you move on. There's something in the future you can plan, like managing the wireless LAN controllers and other things. Even the Cisco have its own models for CCNP. In the CCNP, even there's a CCI wireless as well, which is something can be in the future, but you don't need to be an expert in that. So multiple skill set always plays an important role in any company, the university. Basically, most of the universities or the hospital industries, the main problem with this kind of setup is they have more kind of a basic LAN in the wireless, and roughly you have a firewall, but that too just connecting to one site, and there's no multiple sites. You don't have multiple sites, so basically the routing skill set is something which will be missing for most of these kind of networks, for the university networks or any hospital industries. So you don't have many branches, so there is no WAN connections. So mostly it's more on the system side and the application side again. So if you're applying for a network engineer role, then you need to brush up the CCNA and the CCNP enterprise skill set. Additionally, the wireless is something you can add. And of course, you already have the Palo Alto and the ASA firewalls. So probably these things you need to revise and merge your profile as more as a network security engineer with wireless as well, wireless experience. And once you build your profile as a network security engineer, now you can apply for any IT solution companies. There are different kind of job roles where you can say like, okay, you can move on with these additional skill set. Okay, so like CCNP obviously is going to help you. revising, adding some any other vendor wireless is something recommended, because if you're moving to a different company, basically they might not be using the same product sometimes. So adding any other vendor skill set, little bit, that will be an advantage. And of course, adding one or two firewalls is something recommended. And additionally, VPN skill set. VPN skill set is important because almost every user, whether it's a sales or account, we give VPN access to them, remote VPNs. So, and most of the WAN connection, to some extent, some VPNs will cover in the CCNP, like DM VPN or some basic IPsec VPNs. But it also has some CCNP. Once you're moving on to the security profile, once you get an opportunity, now you can focus on more on the security profile. Now you can ignore these skills a little bit. This will be added here and there, but that's how it's going to be. The job roles, you need to see the job roles, what you want to apply. Mostly, if you're applying for network engineer or network security engineer at the level 2 or the level 3. Again, if you're applying for level 3, they expect you to know designing as well, which means you're expected to have some automation skills like CCI level skills. That's something expected. But at this level, you can apply for the level 2 network engineer or network security engineer. And additionally, you can add the skill set in the span of 5-6 months, and you can apply for those roles. And of course, you have to merge the experience more into this kind of profile, not just showing, you have the wireless skills. Whatever the skill set you add, you need to merge your profile with those skill set and show up 5 to 6 years of experience on the entire domain, not only wireless, the things also you need to show up. Now, coming to the CCNP Enterprise, where you will be learning two modules, the Enterprise Core and the Enterprise NRC. These are the two basic modules what you'll cover up. ENCOR is more about, now we'll be mixing up these things and we'll do module wise or the topic wise. So we're not going to cover paper wise. We'll be covering more on the module wise. So if you divide this entire topics into multiple sections, like you will have a switching. Switching is one of the main section where you focus more on the switching configurations, like VLANs, trunking. We'll start with the VLANs, but we'll go into the more into VLANs, trunking, inter-VLAN routing, spanning tree. Of course, there are many other things we'll cover up, advanced spanning tree with those options. Now, the second main concept is the routing. Now, the routing you have already done in the CCNA routing, static routing, default routing, dynamic routing. That is more kind of an introduction. But whereas here we'll try to deep dive into the routing concepts. We'll try to cover up OSPF, EHR, PD distribution, IPv6, route filtering. There are plenty of options. So mainly at the CCNP level, you will be in a position to configure the things. At the same time, you will be able to implement, verify, and troubleshoot. That is the level. So that's what you generally learn. So this is like the second module, what will move on. And later on, the third module will be another one, the VPN. And the VPN, most of the WAN connections comes over VPN. We'll talk about the different types of VPNs like the GRE, TF VPN, IPsec VPN, and MPLS L3 VPN. So most of the WAN connections comes over the VPN technologies. We'll try to see the different VPN technologies and how they implement, how to configure and verify on the Cisco routers. The overall concept remains the same. And likewise, we'll also add some other skills, like there will be some security topics, there will be some services topics, which is more like security and services technologies, like how to implement network security features, not exactly into the firewalls, but more on like implementing the access list, implementing the layer 2 security, those kind of things. And also services like implementing NAT or HSRP, redundancy protocols. There are plenty of services you implement, NTP, logging, SNMP, those all small topics, they all combine into this. And additionally, there will be some automation foundations you cover up, but the main majority of the automation you will see in the SD-WAN or SDA courses. But here you will mainly only see the foundation of automation concepts, those kind of things. So when it comes to CCNP, these are the three main core skill sets. Routing switching are the main the first and the second, and the third important one is VPNs. This is more talking about the WAN connections or the virtual private network WAN connections. And these are the add-on skill set. These are all add-on skill set, which means on the top of this routing switching, on the top of LAN and WAN, we'll apply some security, we'll apply the services. These are all add-on skills. Add-on means on the top of it. So the core skills will be again the routing and switching here. That will be the main core skill set. So what you have to do, the same thing, you need to make sure that the roadmap is the learning part. Like I said, the learning part means if you're doing the live sessions or listen to the recorded sessions, basically you need to go through with the sessions, and also you need to do practicals as per the workbook which is given. We'll have all the labs documented, so you need to just follow those things, and the same thing will be shown in the class as well. That's the first part. This is the minimum thing you have to do in order to understand and follow the concepts. The second thing, you also need to do expertise. Probably you need to revise the labs weekly ones, and then additionally you need to prepare some interview questions relevant to the topic, which I'll share topic wise. And additionally, you also need to prepare some mock labs later on to understand. And also, if you're working, try to correlate the same thing as per your live networks. How these things goes in the live network, that's something you need to correlate those things. So that's how it's going to be. And obviously, after that, you can apply for the jobs and or the roles, or you can start implementing on your live networks. You can do that. So the things what you get, the mock labs, I'll be sharing interview questions. Of course, I'll be sharing some resume building tips at the end of the course. Additionally, like the images, now you will be getting access to the images, workbooks, the videos. These are the resources what you will be getting access, so that you can expertise, and you will always have the access to the videos on the portal, which will be available, which is a good option for revision, and many people use for the main core learning as well. And anytime you want to revise or recollect any topic, this will be a good option. And parallelly, you can refer the workbook and implement the labs and verify. That's always a good handy option, because most of the time when you do the courses, you will learn many things, but sometimes you don't implement many things, so you might forget. So you can always go through with them to quickly review the topics. Yeah. So the CCNP module mainly covers two papers. If you go to cisco.com, and if you're going to the Cisco certification paths, so this is the way you will find all the latest certifications and everything. Now, training and certifications, you have different domains. Like these are the different expertise domains. Enterprise is the one which we'll be seeing here. You have the enterprise entry level certification. CCNA is a prerequisite, so entry levels. So mainly our focus will be on the professional level, where you will see the professional level certifications. You can also advance yourself to CCIE. Of course, the CCIE, again, the prerequisite is CCNP. The same two modules will be covered. If you're going for CCIE, then additionally you learn SD-WAN and the SDA technologies. Those are the additional things you will learn. Back to the CCNP, you will see this is the CCNP Enterprise. Now, this is a place you will see. Now, potential roles, these are all the same thing in opinion. So view the recertification options. So I'm looking out for the models. So events and the training. This is what you'll see. So the core exam, now CCNP certification is divided into two modules. You have any CCNP, not just enterprise. So CCNP divides into two modules. One is the core exam and the concentration exams. The core exam is generally the core exam. We call it as, if we are doing the enterprise core, it will be called as ENCOR, enterprise core. If you're doing security core, then data center core, like that, service portal core, like that. For every track, there is always the core exam, and the core exams cost around $400. That's a exam, and additionally you will have the concentration exam. So these are core exams, so you have to pass the core exam, like in our case if you are doing for enterprise. And likewise, if you have multiple and concentration exams like NRC, that's something what we generally say SD-WAN. And again, there are many, like this is the enterprise advanced routing, which will be covering up. Additionally, you will have enterprise SD-WAN solution. This is more on WAN automation. And similar way, you have the enterprise designing, enterprise wireless. If you want to get into wireless, then these are the two modules you can focus on. And automation, and even there are some new added like cloud connectivity and then enterprise network assurance. So in our case, we generally cover these two modules, ENCOR and NRC, which are the foundational modules. The other modules are like add-on skill set, which you can do separately. But generally, when we say CCNP Enterprise, as per the course here, we'll be covering these two modules. So again, if you're doing CCIE, then probably you'll be adding this SD-WAN, SDA, these kind of modules as well. So in order to get CCNP certified, the first thing is there's no prerequisite. So there's no prerequisite here. You can directly write any exam. Either you can write the core exam directly, or you can write any of these enterprise concentration exams directly, any track. It's not just this one. There's no prerequisite because previously you need to have CCNA exam to be certified. That's no more. Now you can write any exam. So when you pass any one exam, you will be getting the specialist certificate. Like, let's say I write this exam NRC. So you will be getting a certificate called Enterprise Advanced Routing Specialist. If you write this exam, then you will get the certificate like SD-WAN Specialist. If you write this exam, Enterprise Code Specialist, like that. So each exam will have the specialist certificate, which will be issued by Cisco. And when you pass two exams, one core exam and any one concentration exam, then you will get three certificates. One is the code specialist, the specialist certificate, the code specialist, and then enterprise advanced, and then there is a CCNP certified. Okay, so in order to get the CCNP certified, you need to pass one core exam and one concentration exam, any one core exam and relevant concentration exam you have to pass. And if you're applying for CCI, let's say if you're planning for the CCI, then you need to pass the core exam. That's the first exam. And then you need to directly apply for the lab exam. Lab exam is again 1600 USD. This is 400 USD. So if you're planning for CCI lab directly, then you don't need to write the concentration exams. This is not required. You can directly write the core exam and then the lab exam you can schedule and you can write. And finally, one more thing, the recertification, the 3 years is going to be the validity for certifications. And anytime you want to renew your CCNP certifications, you have to write any one exam for every 3 years. So for every 3 years, you have to make sure that you renew. Either you write the core exam or the concentration exam to renew your certifications. There will be some recertification rules as well. But let's say if you are a CCIE, then you need to renew your certification by passing one core exam, these two exams, one core and one concentration, or three concentration exams. So, or three concentration exams, or any other core exams also you can write. So it depends. Like for every year, if I have to renew, I have to pass these two exams or any equivalent two exams from any other track every 3 years to renew. That's something about the renewal options. So basically, the certification, this is how it goes for CCNP currently. This has been like in Feb 2020, they have introduced all these things. So now the things has changed. It means now it's still the same. This is how the certification goes. And you can always visit the website to check the exams, the latest exams available, and the details you will find on the website.